Tonight I will tell you a long, calm, immersive retelling of tales from the Book of the Thousand Nights and One Night. Volume I settle in, breathe slowly, and let your mind follow the gentle current of these old, patient stories. We begin with the soft image of a great eastern dawn and a king who once sat upon a throne over islands of India and China. He was a man named Shahryar, and with him was his brother Shahzaman. They grew to sorrow and strange resolutions, and from their sorrow came the frame of our long tale. A woman wise beyond reckoning, Scheherazade, whose patient words would keep a king's wrath at bay night after night. In the hush that follows, we will move slowly through the gardens, the sea, the market, and the cool, shady courtyards where lanterns smoke, and we will meet servants and sages, fishermen and genies, merchants and kings. Each scene is drawn with quiet detail, so you can imagine the turning of silk in a soft hand, the slow ripple of the Tigris, and the steady pulse of a caravan in the dust. A king, Shahryar, had reason to distrust love. In another city, his brother Shahzaman had seen betrayal. Back home, the elder king, wounded by a wife's infidelity, swore to make his mornings graves for the women brought to him in the night. Toward the end of 3 dark years, his court had been emptied of its maids, and joyous households had been emptied by his fear. The land was grown thin of brides. In a small house in that city lived a vizier, and in his household lived 2 daughters. Scheherazade, the elder, learned and thoughtful, and Dunyazad, her sister, gentle and obedient. When the vizier, desperate for deliverance of his people, told Scheherazade of the unbearable decree, she did not answer with fear, but with a plan, a bright, cunning, patient plan. She would go to the king, tell a story, and when morning came, she would ask her sister for another story. She would keep the king's ears and heart awake and use stories like a bridge to cross a dangerous river. This is the beginning, not of a single story, but of the habit of stories, the art of waiting, and the power of a single voice to change a life. Scheherazade took her place on the royal cushion, and when the king bade her speak, she opened her mouth and let forth a long river of words, tales of merchants who met genies, fishermen who drew up brass vessels sealed by Solomon, and old men whose misfortunes turned to astonishing escapes. She began with the merchant and the genie. Imagine an afternoon heat, a lonely garden with a walnut tree and a spring. A merchant sits beneath the shade, eating bread and holding a date stone. The sea far off hides a secret. When the stone falls and winks by chance, an Afrit, a great spirit, rises in a column of smoke and binds the man by an oath and a promise. The merchant begs and bargains. He asks to live a year to settle affairs, and the spirit allows it. The tale breathes patience and faith. The merchant is carried forward across a year of duty, and then returns to the same walnut tree to meet his fate. There, the garden conceals 3 old men who, the tale unfolds, each have their own histories dark and looming. ominous. The afrit, bound in a jar, demands a story in exchange for life. One by one, each old man tells a strange tale of enchantment and sorrow, of gazelles that were once princesses, of men enchanted into beasts, and of hearts that let go and then found mercies no human, I might imagine. Each telling is slow and tender. The old men speak of sons turned into calves and wives who learned magic and disguised fate. One tale pauses, breathing on details: the smell of rosewater, the rasp of a lute, the gleam of a necklace of rings, each bearing the touch of countless lovers. The afrit listens, astonished, and relents piece by piece. He releases the merchant and the old men. Scheherazade ends that night's narrative at dawn, and the king, who had intended to end the teller, finds himself held fast by curiosity, held by the kindness of story. On the second night, Scheherazade sets the next scene. A fisherman on a midday shore, accustomed to throw his net 4 times each day. He hauls in a jar of brass with Solomon's seal and opens it, and there is a smoke that becomes a marid, a spirit of rougher temper. The fisherman bargains and bargains, clever and mild. In the jars and seals are voices of entrapment and the promise of riches. In the fisherman's wit are patient, human maneuvers. Each exchange is paced so we can hear the little creak of rope, the splash of net, the whisper the sea always makes. The marid boasts of his centuries trapped. The fisherman replies with small, humane cunning, locking the spirit up again in the jar, and bargaining for a life of comfort, a single, measured life. Later in that string of tales, the fisherman's caution leads him into other stories where kings, strange lovers, and physicians will bend fate back toward mercy. It is a world where mills and markets, law courts and kitchens, palaces and huts all meet. The fisherman's jar births a whole corridor of tales inside Shehrazade's telling. The physician Dubbin who cured a king only to be betrayed, a royal falcon, and the sorrow of a hunter. The Sultan who learns the bitter lines of repentance. In these episodes, the images are gentle and sure. The glint of a sword, the shimmer of a fish-silver scale, the softness of a drawn curtain in a palace late at night. The verses that lace each tale, like small stars, give the story the cadence of breath. When she stops at dawn, the king cannot hazard the blade. He cannot let a voice so full of cunning and warmth go silent. Across the nights, the palace becomes a lanterned thatch of tales told into the space between darkness and daylight. The Porter and the 3 Ladies of Baghdad is next, a charming, playful evening. Picture a market square where a porter takes a heavy basket on his head and is led into a house of 3 extraordinary women, not a harem of sorrow, but a room full of laughter and jests. The women camp a rule: ask not of what concerns thee not. Their party hums with music, simple jokes, and teasing. The porter is allowed to join them, to eat and to revel. The air fills with wine singing and mock courtliness. The place brims with small, comic particulars. The way the porter tries to learn the women's teasing names for their private joys and fails, the delicate play of restraint when a visitor oversteps, the sense of a night where nothing malicious happens, but everything is permitted by consent and humor. Scheherazade's voice walks us gently through the drama of love and folly, moving to the three storytellers who arrive, stranger men, each wounded and worldly. Each of them will tell his tale of princes and cursed tombs, of markets where pomegranate seeds can sing and summon marvelous things, of enchanted palaces that open to private, extravagant worlds where those who pry might lose an eye. One tells of the enchanted youth, a prince bound to a strange fate, whose city the girl he loved transforms, in love and vengeance, into a lake. Another tells of the three calendars, men who shave their beards and lose an eye because of curiosity. Their stories are full of bright edges, gardens that turn into palaces, orchards that open onto secret rooms, doors that must never be opened, and the strange law that some pleasures invite ruin. The old voices are gentle. The cadence is measured. You can feel the cool air of a balcony at night, the soft hum of lute, and the careful decorum of a house whose women keep their own counsel. When Scheherazade tells the story of a merchant whose wife learns the art of a trick to quiet a jealous husband, we hear not harshness, but wry humor and quiet moral notes. The tale of the ox and the ass speaks to small domestic wisdom and the cost of folly. The narrative style is warm and steady, persisting as the world itself does, a steady sequence of small human acts. The storyteller's voice does not rush. Each detail, the clay of a cup, the dust of a road, the dim gleam of a gold-threaded hem, makes the scene more real and sumptuous. The tales unfold like a slow tide. The most famous episodes, the fisherman and the genie, the story of Nureddin and his son Bedreddin, the long chain that begins with the hunchback's death, are not told in a breath, but in the comfortable cadence of many evenings. The hunchback's tale illustrates something almost tender about human confusion. A little chain of accidents, a series of misunderstandings and sudden confessions, the sudden unmasking of every character's error and grief. Imagine 4 or 5 people, each believing himself guilty of the murder of a single hapless hunchback. A tailor, a Jew, a Christian broker, a controller, each story more and more improbable until the barber, a silent, grave man, unravels the truth and restores life. The nights here are cool, the storytelling soft. At the end, the king laughs, offers pardon, spreads largesse, and the court is relieved. These episodes show us the power of patient listening and the sure repair of mercy. Late into our listening, Scheherazade comes to the story of Nureddin Ali and his son Bedreddin Hassan. In soft, rural images, we follow the younger Bedreddin, star-bright, carried across seas, dressed in splendid robes to the court, loved by kings, and made into a marvel by his pen and wit. He grows in favor with kings as gently as a tree grows leaves. And yet his fortune is not without sorrow. His father's life and fate, the jealousies and the strange twists of fate, lead the family on a path through palaces and deserts. When the family suffers, Bedreddin, clever, poetical, quick of hand, becomes once a cook's son and rises again. And we hear poetry that tastes of saffron and the waves, sweet salt. The story threads tenderly between the small domestic acts and the large gestures of kingship. We see a boy sent to the Sultan in a chest to entertain his court. A gentle reminder that magic and fate live in small practical jokes, as well as in gin bottles. Another late tale is that of the three apples, which begins with a fisherman and ends in a tangle of family, marketplace, and the fatal strangeness that a single apple can bring. This whole story spins out into new evenings of storytelling. Nureddin's donation of his goods to save a life, the delicate moral windings of kindness and jealousy. The atmosphere is always richly domestic, the images minimal but luminous, citron blossoms floating on a bowl of water, the rippled shadow of a palm on courtyard marble, a lamp set on brass. There is a gentle humor in many of these interactions. The porter's nights among the three ladies are full of laughter. The barber's family is a catalogue of comic mishap and odd bodily consequence. Ears lost, eyes taken out, all told with a light, mocking hand that always returns to compassion. The reader or listener is invited to watch, not to judge harshly. Even punishment is narrated with an almost classical calm, a lesson that human error is often entangled with generous foolishness. And when the barber unburies the truth of the hunchback with a small pot of salve and a pair of tweezers, the resuscitation itself is tender. He performs a miracle with patient craft, and everyone is gently astonished. Slowly, night after night, Scheherazade's story proves its power. As she pauses each morning and resumes each night, the king's fury softens. The stories change his life. He learns to listen, to entertain curiosity rather than kill it. He learns that a voice that will wait is more powerful than a blade. Scheherazade keeps the court safe, and after 1,001 nights, she keeps an entire kingdom from a rash habit. There is a soft glory in this. A single, patient human mind can bend a whole savage rule into a better shape with stories alone. Throughout these tales, the images are small and steady. A brass vase stamped with a seal that will not yield, a chest of sand opened to reveal a smoke, the smell of musk and ambergris drifting from a lamp, the chill of a breath on a window lattice as dawn approaches. Even the magic is described without alarm. Genies rise and speak like ancient rulers, their voices like the deep wells. They are full of moods and bargains. The stories honor cunning, wit as much as pious patience. The fisherman who traps a marid is not demonized. His cunning is celebrated. The old men who spin their histories are full of human frailty and surprising kindness. We move through the markets, where gold chinks, and into perfect rooms where women keep their own counsel. As you listen, notice how often a small deed changes everything. A fisherman's act of mercy, a prisoner's confession, a girl's single choice to give a handkerchief and a purse, a wife's clever trick to quiet a jealous husband. These stories are not simply romances of exotic marvels. They are made of human things: hunger, jealousy, the desire for beauty, the need for mercy, the small craft of surviving. They remind us, and this is their quiet moral, that good fortune and sorrow are woven together, and that the patient heart that tells stories can turn the weave. Now and then, the verse rises like a single bell, and then sinks back into the prose like a line of stars winking in the night. The poems that come short measures, the poems of a bedchamber and a caravan, fit like pebbles across a stream. They add music to the speech and tenderness to the images. A loved face becomes the moon, wine becomes a balm and a trap. The language so often reaches for small shining things: the scent of henna, the touch of a robe of brocade, the flash of a jewel. And in these small, bright objects, the stories keep their warmth. We have traveled through so many nights: the fisherman and the jar, the merchant and the afrit, the tailor and the hunchback, Nuruddin and Bedruddin, the three apples, the porter's midnight revel. Each tale focuses us on a single small morality: kindness bends fate. The great palace decisions come not from monster conflicts, but from the soft outcomes of human choices. Scheherazad's greatest gift is her patience, and the habit of storytelling itself is what heals the king's savage policy. It is a lesson as slow as sleep. A voice spoken night after night becomes a hand laid upon the mind. As the final evenings of the cycle draw near, the style remains as soothing as a river's constant rush. Scheherazad's voice has become the felt turn of an oarsman's wrist. The king is softened, the land sighs with relief. Imagine now the final hush. The court is quiet, the candles dimmed, the final morning light like a thin ribbon across the floor. Scheherazade reveals, in her last night, the resolution that will free her and her people, an alliance of stories that built a new law of mercy. The king learns not only to delight in tale after tale, but to be changed by them, to replace killing with listening, and to swear that henceforward no one will die merely for a night's indulgence. And now let us lower the lamps. Picture the palace in the cool blue of early morning, the hush moving like a soft sheet over the gardens. Hear the faint far bell of a distant market, smell the last cup of the night's musk, and feel the slow tide of sleep come over you. The 1001 Nights that Scheherazade spun are a long series of gentle, winding paths through palaces, bazaars, deserts, and gardens, each path a careful lamp for the human heart. If you would like me to tell a single story from those I have mentioned, whole and unhurried, perhaps The Fisherman and the Genie, or the tale of Nuruddin and his son Bedruddin, or the tender sequence of the hunchback and the barber, I will settle into that single tale and speak it through the night, line by line, until sleep takes us both. For now, tuck this anthology into your mind as a warm, story-shaped shawl. Let your breathing soften. Imagine the palace doors closing. Imagine Scheherazade smiling in the dark with the simple power of her voice. Let the echoes of the lamps and the mariners' songs and the fisherman's tide lull you down. Sleep plain and deep, wrapped in the slow, patient music of these 1,001 nights.